Hi, I'm McKenna Shire, and I will be talking about the objectification of women in advertising. A little bit of background on this issue is that women have been and still are subject to sexual objectification since people think that sex sells. Sexual objectification is a reduction of a woman to her body, body parts, or sexual function, which are consequently viewed as instruments or representing her entirely. When one sees how common this is, they see that the prevalence is quite high. According to Kaylee Vance's study, 50% of advertisements with women portrayed them as sexual objects. This is important to study because there are consequences of these images to both men and women. Kaylee Vance found that people who view women as objects or as less than human are likely to excuse treating them less than human through emotional abuse, physical violence, and rape. And when I looked into why this is, I found that Sylvia Galati found that the cultural differences in behavioral standards and social norms are key components in shaping the varying concepts of sexual harassment across countries and social contexts. So, in other words, if our culture is accepting women portrayed as beer bottles or as other objects, people are going to think this is the norm, and they're going to adapt this into their lives and their own practices. On the flip side, they've found that women will objectify themselves, which means women will internalize the observer's objectifying perspective of their bodies and become chronic self-monitors of their own bodies. And this is according to Rachel Kalergo. And she also talked about that this can cause anxiety, depression, sexual dysfunction, and disordered eating in women. So this issue raises the question of, so how do we advertise ethically to women, around women, and to men? And I found that the principle 5 is applicable since it talks about that advertisers should treat consumers fairly based on the nature of their audience that the ads are directed at. And although they usually discuss this about children and advertising certain products to them, I think this could be applied to advertising towards women since research has shown that the social and psychological implications are harmful and negative to both parties. And as you can see with this American Apparel ad that says now open and shows this woman in a sexually vulnerable position, this is one of the many ways to advertise this bodysuit that they're trying to sell. And they found that trying to quote unquote sell sex was the easiest way. So changing that could take many forms. And one solution that I looked at is from Melissa Gray, and she suggested advertising through body competency. And body competency is when a body is used for the sake of oneself, like strength, or as part of a whole person, like intelligence and warmth. So this goes past the common narrative of advertising to women in order to please men, and it looks at advertising to the consumer or the woman as herself and as a holistic person. And a great example of this is the Aerie lingerie line by American Eagle. Aerie launched this #AerieReal campaign that focuses on not retouching women's images or advertising their lingerie. And this is one of the many examples of how people could holistically market a woman with lingerie instead of marketing a woman as an object that happens to be wearing lingerie. As you can see in this example, this advertisement not only gives the model a name, Barbie Ferreira, but it also shows her in a very normal and uncompromising position, and it applies to who she is past just her body and just past her sexual worth by giving her a name and giving her clothing that looks more comfortable than quote unquote sexually appealing. And this is just one of the many examples of how someone can market without objectifying women. I just found this example a great and very strong way to market. So to wrap this up, one can see that the objectification of women's bodies can lead to consequences that affects both genders and sexes. But when ethically marketing, including the fifth principle that we learned about, there are solutions like body competency, and there's many others that I just did not have time to discuss today. But as you can see, when one invokes ethical advertising, everyone can win. Thank you so much, and I hope you enjoy your day.